They defended their homes with string, darkness and nerves of steel. And, it still works today. The bombs weren't the only threat in World War II. That's the part most people miss honestly. While the sky burned and cities shook, another danger crept through the streets below. Quiet, human, opportunistic. And ordinary civilians with no weapons, no electricity and no backup figured out how to stop intruders cold using nothing but household scraps and a ruthless understanding of fear. This wasn't folklore. This was lived experience. And, well, the trick they used still works today. This is old-world prep territory. Real history, real survival, no gimmicks. Let's get into it. Home defense in World War II was about people, not bombs. When the Blitz hit Britain and air raids spread across Europe, families fled to shelters, cellars, or countryside refugees. Entire neighbourhoods went dark. Windows shattered. Doors hung loose. Law enforcement was stretched thin or non-existent. That vacuum invited looters, spies, deserters, and desperate men looking for easy wins. The average household couldn't fight back head-on, so they didn't try. Instead, they built defences that worked without confrontation. No heroics, no gunfights, just systems that made intruders hesitate, panic and leave. The goal wasn't to catch someone. It was to convince them they'd picked the wrong house. That mindset is the core lesson modern security keeps rediscovering. World War II civilians understood something that, modern homeowners often forget. A lock is just a suggestion. A camera is just a witness. What really stops intruders is, honestly, uncertainty. Homes were defended in layers. Each layer did one thing: slow movement, create noise, disrupt confidence, and, of course, trigger fear. None of it required electricity, and none of it required strength either. The moment an intruder felt exposed or off balance, the attempt usually ended. This wasn't theory. Wartime records and civil defense manuals documented it clearly. Most intrusions failed after the first unexpected event. One stumble, one noise, one moment of something isn't right. That's where the infamous trap doorway comes in. The trap doorway turned confidence into panic. In blackout conditions, visibility was, really near zero. Civilians took advantage of that. Thin wire, string, rope, or even a bit of laundry line was stretched across hallways and entry points. Not chest-high, mind you, not obvious at all. Low enough to catch a shin or ankle, but high enough to be missed in the dark. An intruder moving quickly through a darkened home would hit it, stumble, and often fall. That single moment did several things at once. It created noise, it disoriented the intruder, and most importantly, it shattered the illusion of control. Burglars, they really rely on momentum. Once that momentum breaks, fear just sort of floods in. People often assume traps need to injure to be effective. But during World War II, it actually proved the opposite. A scare was enough. The idea that someone had prepared the space was quite often more frightening than the presence of the homeowner themselves. Modern security still uses this principle, really. Tripline alarms, door chimes, motion-triggered noise devices. Same concept, just different packaging. Darkness was used as a weapon, not a weakness. Blackouts during World War II were mandatory to avoid drawing enemy aircraft. But civilians quickly realized darkness also protected them at ground level. A pitch-black house gave nothing away. An intruder couldn't tell if it was abandoned or occupied. Was someone inside listening, watching, waiting? Families, you know, learned to control light deliberately. There might be just a brief flicker behind blackout curtains, or perhaps a covered lamp switched on and off once. Sometimes a flashlight beam would be redirected at a ceiling for only a split second. That tiny signal, well, it suggested presence without actually revealing anyone's position. Psychologically, this was honestly devastating. An intruder approaching what they thought was an empty home suddenly had to assume they were being watched. Most, frankly, didn't risk finding out. Today, this translates directly, you know. Motion-activated lighting, especially when it's inconsistent or indirect, creates the same uncertainty as before. For off-grid or preparedness-minded setups, well, a simple solar light behind a curtain or a frosted window achieves the same effect. Light wasn't about illumination, it was about control. Noise was the silent killer of intrusion attempts. During air raids, sound carried. Streets were empty, engines quiet, footsteps echoed. Civilians exploited this ruthlessly. Tin cans, pans, metal scraps, glass bottles, anything that could clatter was hung on string near doors, windows, stairwells and hallways. Not to injure, to expose. One touch, one slip, one accidental nudge. The house announced the intruder's presence. That noise did two things. It alerted anyone nearby, and it told the intruder they'd been detected, even if no one was home. Modern terminology calls this active deterrence through passive design. World War II families just called it survival. You know, you can still apply this today without looking paranoid or theatrical. For instance, a small bell attached to a basement door, or perhaps some gravel in a metal container behind a rarely used entrance. Even just a loose object placed where it must be moved to pass. These are all subtle ways to create a bit of warning. Nothing electronic, nothing flashy, just forced sound from motion, really. That's all it takes sometimes. These defences weren't about strength. They were about psychology, you see. Intruders fear three things above all else: surprise, exposure, uncertainty. World War II home defences triggered all three within seconds. A stumble suggests preparation. A noise suggests witnesses. A flicker of light suggests occupation. Together they create a mental image of risk far greater than reality. That's why, these methods are still taught in modern security design and survival planning. Technology changes, but human instinct doesn't. The real brilliance of World War II civilian defense was honestly adaptability. People just used what they had, and they layered it. Start with access points. Doors should resist force, but more importantly, resist silence. Wedges, floor-mounted braces, or secondary barriers, these slow entry and, increase noise. Windows, especially those at basement level, should really force interaction. Mesh, grates or dense screens don't have to be completely impenetrable, They just need to demand a bit of effort. Inside the home, it's important to create disruption zones. Hallways that require careful movement and entry paths that aren't smooth or predictable. Light sources that can be triggered without revealing your position. These are all useful, honestly. Noisemakers should be subtle. Nothing that screams trap, really. The goal here is plausibility. An intruder should feel as though they made a mistake, not that they've walked onto a movie set. This is layered defense. Each element alone is weak, but together, they're overwhelming. This isn't nostalgia, it's resilience. World War II civilians didn't have apps, alarms or security companies. They had ration books and rubble. And, they still protected their homes. They understood that real defense is environmental. It's about shaping behavior, not overpowering it. Trip lines, darkness control, noise traps, psychological pressure, these are old tools because they work. If you want to understand true preparedness, study people who lived through sustained crisis. Not as a hobby, as a daily reality. They remind us that survival favors those who think ahead and design their space with intention. If this kind of hard-earned history matters to you, this channel is built for that mindset. Subscribe. Share this with someone who respects old-world knowledge. And, keep learning from those who mastered survival when failure wasn't an option.